I'm Joey Lott, and this is another video in the series that I call Ask Consciousness Anything. And the purpose of this series is to invite you to discover for yourself the truth of who you really are. And this matters because until you discover directly for yourself the truth of who you are, you will always be living with doubt and confusion, insecurity and uncertainty about who you are. So clearly this matters because as long as you don't have clarity about who you are, you will be living from that insecurity. And in fact, you will be living under the delusion that you are the content of mind. So if you look right now, you will surely notice, if you evaluate honestly, that most of the time, your attention is stuck in thought, telling you about your experience rather than remaining with the direct experience. And this is how most of us are conditioned to live out our lives. And in fact, I would say probably the majority of humanity for a very long time has lived in this way for their entire life. Most people never recognize the truth of who they are in an entire lifetime. But this is no longer necessary. In fact, it's possible for you to awaken to the truth of who you are and to live from that clarity every moment of your life. And I can guarantee that that is true because if you are watching this video right now, then it means that you are ready. It's really not, doesn't have to be mysterious or magical or anything like that. You can just know that it's simply true. When you are here watching this video, you are ready because you're ready to hear this message and this invitation to finally rest as you are and to live from this clarity. When you do so, you are ending the war within, and this allows for the full possibility of living peace in the world, which is what all of us want. So I have the question right over here, and I'll take a look at it. It says, since you can't solve a problem at the level it was created, mind, it says in parentheses, therefore, when I go to direct experience rather than the mind for resolution, I don't seem to get clarity or truth there either. In what way does the universe deliver clarity in the present moment prior to thought? So this is a really, really wonderful question. Thank you so much for asking this because this really illustrates very clearly one of the core mistakes that we make. So you can see it here. It says, absolutely rightly so. Yes, you cannot solve the problem at the level it was created. Because the level at which it was created, if you take a look, is always at the level of thought. In fact, it's only thought that ever proposes that there is a problem. If you remain with the direct experience, which doesn't mean you have to restrain or try to maintain that, but rather just in this moment, just to rest for one instant, you recognize that right now, in this instant right now, of resting as you are, as the stillness that you are, that there is no problem here. There's no possibility of a problem here. And in fact, everything that happens, no matter what the mind labels it, is received absolutely perfectly here. This is always true. This is not some special experience only for a few. This is actually the experience of yourself. Everybody, this is their most intimate experience of themselves because this is simply what it is to be. To be is not something that we have to do. We don't have to earn being. We don't have to work to be. We simply are. So, when we recognize that clarity is already here, when we recognize that this stillness is already here, then we notice what happens next. What happens next is that some experience arises in clarity, in stillness, and because of the conditioning of the body-mind, the tendency is to give attention there. And it's done innocently and out of love. But still, you can see that that's what's happening. That's the mechanics of it, is that there is stillness and then there is the tendency, because of the conditioning of the body-mind, to give attention to the body-mind as an object, and then to imagine incorrectly that that is what defines you. when in fact your actual experience of yourself is always already here effortlessly. So I'm going to look over here just for a second because I'm going to reread what it says. It says, I don't seem to get clarity or truth there either. And that's right. Because if you observe right now, you will see possibly two things. First of all, that you, as you are, don't get clarity. You don't need to get clarity. Clarity is not yours to have. It is what you are, right? In this moment right now, if you're willing just to drop everything and just remain with the direct experience, you will have to admit that your true nature is already clarity. It's clear, isn't it? It's absolutely clear. That's part of the problem as far as the mind is concerned, because the mind says, well, wait a second, it's clear. There's nothing there for me to grasp. So you see, the mind cannot get clarity. In fact, no one can get clarity. Clarity cannot be gotten, but clarity is your true nature. And you can see that only the mind would argue with that, because the direct experience is of clarity. There's nothing to grasp here, nothing whatsoever. This is your most intimate experience of yourself, always. It's very obvious, right? If you just pause and just don't grasp at the mind for just a moment, it's totally clear. Absolutely clear. But not as a thing, not as an idea, right? This is not clarity, cannot be grasped. I want this to be really clear. I'm speaking literally, or as literally as it's possible to speak, right? Just the same, we can see that clarity is an aspect, we could say, of consciousness. It's a quality of consciousness. Like peace is a quality of consciousness. Spaciousness is a quality of consciousness. Silence is a quality of consciousness. So these qualities cannot be grasped, right? I mean, you can't grasp silence. You can't grasp spaciousness. You cannot grasp clarity. But we recognize that this is the truth in our direct experience, and it's also necessarily inferred, right? We recognize that in order for there to be seeing, there has to be clarity. In order for there to be, there must be spaciousness. So we recognize in our most intimate experience of ourselves that this is the truth of who we are. We recognize ourselves as consciousness, as aware, as being. And then we can notice these qualities of ourself that are always here, always, always, always present. Silent, still, spacious, clear. So then, if we turn to the mind, then the mind, we say, mind, where is clarity? I thought clarity was going to be found here. And mind says, no, gee, boss, doesn't seem to be here, can't find it. I'm looking really hard. I'm looking really hard for this clarity. And everywhere I grasp, I turn up empty-handed. No clarity here. Sorry. And then we can pretend like we're really frustrated. This isn't fair. I thought I was going to find it. But if you notice right now, effortlessly, I mean, if you're really just paying attention, right? If you're looking at the screen, you notice there's a possibility of entrainment. Right? So maybe in the past you've heard about transmission, something energetic. And the mind, goes to town with that. Either the mind makes something of it, right? The mind tells a story about it. Ooh, what is that? Really curious, magical, mysterious. It's going to tell a story about that. Or the mind will push against it and reject it and fight with it. What do you mean transmission? I don't believe in that. That's nonsense. But right now, if you're just paying attention, you notice that there's the possibility of entrainment. And this isn't some woo concept. I mean, this is quite well accepted now, even within the mainstream. that, we've got mirror neurons. So your presence and the quality of your presence offers the possibility of entrainment to that, depending on another's clarity, let's say, or recognition of clarity. And so normally we are in training to whatever is around and we don't really notice, right? Somebody walks in and they're in a bad mood and then we entrain to that, right? Either we get in a bad mood or we grow anxious and try to figure out how are we going to respond to this. So we notice that entrainment is happening. But you can notice that it's possible to entrain here. And the mind might get scared about that because it might say, well, wait, what is that? Is that some kind of like weird guru submission kind of thing? Which maybe it is. But it's certainly not to me. It's not a submission to me. It's a submission, if anything, to the divine. It's a submission to your own self. It's really to allow the mind finally to turn and recognize its own source. And for you to rest as that source. So if we keep consulting the mind, which if you're in training, it gets harder and harder to do, right? Because you might notice, I'm not giving a lot of attention to my mind. Still functioning happens, but I'm not looking to the mind to tell me who I am. I'm not looking to the mind to tell me what it is that I need to communicate. I'm not looking to the mind for the answer. The mind is a vehicle or a channel through which oneself can be expressed, absolutely. But if we've got the cart before the horse, things aren't going to work very well. So if you're in training, then you recognize maybe, possibly, that there's a stillness here. And that this is effortless. And that this is actually your most intimate experience of yourself. And this is not something that somebody can give you. Nor is it something that somebody can take away. And so when you really connect to this, all of the fears of submission can go away because those were only ever based in separation and the fear that some other would dominate you or destroy you or harm you or torture you. As the mind has abundant evidence that that is the case because the mind says, well, that's what's always happened. That's what's happened my whole life. And so you seem to have a lot of evidence for the fear and why you need to sustain it. But you can notice that actually there's a possibility of just resting here. And that by resting here, everything is met here effortlessly. And that this is your true self. This is who you are. This is not something that can be taken from you, cannot be diminished. You can explore this in your own direct experience and recognize that there's actually only spaciousness in your direct experience, only clarity in your direct experience. But if you place the mind in the wrong position, again, if you imagine that you are the mind or that the mind's content can determine your okayness, then you overlook the clarity. Because you see, the mind always has its idea of clarity. The mind's idea of clarity is another object. It's a particular state. It's in contrast with something else. Ultimately, you have to acknowledge that it comes and goes, because if it's not here right now, then even if it comes, you know that it has come and that it will go. Or if it is here now, but it wasn't, you know that it will go. The body came and the body will go. We know this, and we live with this anxiety, most of us, because we're looking to the mind to give us reassurance, to tell us who we are. And maybe we get ideas handed to us by others that say, well, I am an eternal soul. And you can repeat that to yourself over and over and over. I am an eternal soul. I am an eternal soul. I am an eternal soul. But does that do it? No, because you're still looking to the mind to try and soothe itself so that you can imagine that you are now okay. But then that okayness comes and goes. You see, we're always pursuing something that comes and goes. And at least until we recognize the folly of that, because we know that that won't satisfy us. What will satisfy us is that which is always here. And so then if we are willing, we just rest here. And we don't need to turn to the mind anymore. Because the mind's idea of clarity is not the truth of clarity. Clarity is this, which is always here, which is allowing all. It's allowing vision, seeing. It's allowing the appearance. Allowing it all. It's what's always allowing all. So it's not something that can be grasped by the mind because the mind arises in it. The mind has its existence within existence, within the clarity of consciousness that you are. So you just notice that dynamic. There's inquiry, and then there's looking to the mind again to tell you if the inquiry is working. But by what standard can the mind measure that? Only by its ideas of what has come in the past. But this is not talking about what has come and gone. That's not what we're interested in. We're only interested in what's here. The only way to know that is to directly inquire into your own direct experience. So be willing just to let go for a moment of the fixation on mind and just rest here as you are. Then clarity is clear. Hopefully, that's clear. So as always, if you have a question that you would like to ask, you can ask that at joeylott.com/ask. That's JOEYLOTT.com/ask. And if you would be interested in direct coaching or learning about my current events, you can go to joeylott.com/now, NOW. Okay, I'll see you next time. Bye for now.